What's up, everybody? BigSweetC here with you, and I have got another great episode of Another Gamer Podcast. This is episode number 2. First, I want to thank all of you guys for coming by. Everybody that checked out episode 1, it is still up on the YouTube channel if you want to get a look at it and see what it's all about. We are going to continue these, like I said, bi-weekly. That's my goal, and eventually I would like to get them set up to where I get into a little bit of a rhythm where everything comes out on the same day at the same time, all that jazz. So you guys have plenty of time to watch it, but not only that, know when and exactly it's going to come out, so you can be prepared for that kind of thing. But it is a work in progress, and that's actually kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit to begin our day. My wife and I were talking about the first episode, and she brought up a good point. I mean, it looks a little broke ass. I'm not gonna lie, it does look a little cheap, and that's mostly because it is. I don't have a whole lot of stuff behind me. It's a big white wall. Sure, you can see some of my gaming consoles, my wife's little setup in the back there. But I don't have a whole lot of stuff on the wall. I don't have a lot of cool collector's items hanged on the wall back there. I don't really have a whole lot of like props and little toys and stuff to kind of take up the space here in the window. But the truth of the matter is, right now my podcast is more really meant to be listened to than to be watched, if that makes sense. And so that's why I had brought up if you would rather listen to this over on like Spotify or something like that, we could also look into that as an option as well. But I do have plans for the future to upgrade as we go along. As a gamer dad, I don't have a whole lot of time to kind of do that type of stuff, especially as a gamer dad that doesn't come from an already somewhat famous background. I'm not a professional athlete or a former professional athlete or a current professional athlete that has his own podcast. I'm not a somewhat famous comedian who used the pandemic or, friends to get a bunch of like high level celebrities on this podcast or on my YouTube channel to really like, become famous before I started this podcast. So, like I don't have one, a whole lot of money to put into it, but two, like I don't have a whole lot of time as a dad either. I do my 9 to 5. Granted, now it's only 4 days a week as opposed to 5. So I got a little bit more time. But as soon as I get home, like I'm full-fledged dad mode, and that's why most of my streams take place at 2 in the morning for my time, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning until 5 or 6, because I'm in full-blown dad mode until my son goes to bed, which can be anywhere between 10:30 p.m. and like midnight. And then I got to get everything set up and everything like that. But I also, I plan on, upgrading cameras and mics when the time comes. I do have a setup for a second person, which would be great because I would love to have special guests. Specifically, my wife. I would love to have her on the show as a sometime co-contributor or even like an actual co-host of the show with me if he starts to feel comfortable enough to do so. Um, my brother's a big gamer. He's my best friend outside of my wife. So like I'd love to have him on the show. He and I talk video games all the time, and we talk over Xbox chat because that's what he has. He has an Xbox. He does have a Nintendo Switch, but they don't really have like an online version, like co-op thing. They don't have a chat channel, if you will, on Nintendo Switch. So when we play, we play Xbox. And he and I, we go back and forth on all sorts of stuff: TV shows, movies, games, life, lions, all sorts of stuff in general. So I would love to have him on the show, and I got a lot of friends that I would love to have on the show as well. Some of them are gamers, some of them are not. I'd like to have a whole lot of different variety of content creators, if you will, on the show. Some of them are just talk about sports. Some of them don't talk about sports at all. Some of them talk about movies. Some of them talk about music, which I don't talk a whole lot about. And I think that variety would really, kind of help the podcast grow as well. I plan on having all sorts of that stuff. I do have a green screen that I was, attempting to get up for this episode. I do have the Adobe Suite, so I can make like transitions and opening title sequences and stuff. But again, when I get home from work, it's full fledged dad mode, and even on my off days, like outside of the 3 hours I get to watch the Lions and the couple hours one day a week that I play games with my brother. The rest of the time is taking care of Christopher, my son. Like I'm always on that job, making sure he gets his exercise, he runs around, he gets fed, he gets changed, that kind of thing. Luckily, I don't have to like do a whole lot of the change in diapers. My wife does predominantly all of that. But when I'm at home, I'm feeding them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like I'm playing with him out in the living room. I'm playing with him in his playpen. I'm taking him out for walks on occasion and stuff when I can get him outside. That's something that my wife and I are trying to get more in tune with, taking him for longer walks and taking him for trips to the grocery store or outdoors to do some disc golfing with us. Like little by little. We're first time parents, so we don't really know exactly what all that entails and everything, and when we can take him, and how do we know that he's doing okay. How are we gonna be prepared in case we get him to a place that he doesn't like. I remember we took him to this Kids Kingdom, I think is what it was called, and it's like this jungle gym, but it's all padded jungle gym, and it's meant for younger kids to, I would say probably 10 years old or so. And we we take him everywhere. He seems to be okay, but as soon as we put him down on this padding, he didn't like the way that it felt or something, and he started crying. We had to console him a little bit. We had to take him away from the environment for a minute. We didn't leave the place, but we just kind of lifted him up and made sure he was doing okay. And then we reintroduced him to that type of material, and so he eventually got used to it, and he was crawling around, and he was being adventurous and exploring everything that he could. But it took a little while. So there's always that kind of inner feeling that we take him disc golfing, which my wife and I love to do. Maybe he doesn't like the woods. Maybe a fly comes in and bites him, and he gets a mosquito bite or something, and we have to, you know, take care of all that. Maybe something bothers him, and he just starts crying his eyes out. Luckily, knock on wood, we've taken him to a couple of restaurants, and that hasn't been the case. We've taken him to a couple of friends' houses, and that hasn't been the case. He's actually been very good. Um, but like it limits the amount of time I get to work on this podcast. So slowly by slowly, we will start adding to it. I think probably the first thing that I'll be able to get up is probably the green screen, if I can find a spot to put it. I don't have we're in kind of a smaller home, so I don't have a huge area to kind of put it. But again, we're working on music for the show. I'm looking for a very specific thing, sound that I'm looking for the theme of the show, and so we can get some opening titles out there. I know right now we just have the words on screen, so again, it's budget friendly, if you will. Think of Angry Video Game Nerd, when he first started versus when he became Cinemassacre. He got sponsorships, and eventually, I would love to bring in some merchandising, so I'm not just kind of wearing the same stuff over and over again. Maybe I'm advertising some shirts you guys would like to buy to help support the channel. And perhaps, maybe at some point, I get a sponsor or two. And so that kind of supplemental income will help go a long way in terms of giving me the flexibility to be able to actually upgrade this podcast. But life as a dad takes first priority. So bear with me as we grow, and and I get better at doing this stuff, and I get more efficient at doing this stuff, and I start adding pieces. Because once I get the piece done, not like I have to then recreate it all the time outside of maybe a tweak here or there. So again, I've got a whole list of stuff that I would like to add to the channel, and it's just gonna, it's just gonna take me some time. But the truth of the matter is, if I would have sat here and tried to get all these pieces together before I started doing this, we wouldn't have started yet. I get into these kind of weird creative funks, where I have a great idea or what I think is a great idea, and I start to kind of work on it, and it doesn't seem to pan out the way that I originally intended, and I kind of get a little bit of a writer's block because of it. And so, um, if I'm limited to an hour here, hour there, I spend half an hour, 45 minutes of it doing this one thing that doesn't end up panning out to to be what I want it to be, or maybe it does end up showing up what I thought it would look like, and it just doesn't look as good as it probably should. That's kind of another day, unfortunately. I don't want to say wasted, because every failure is a learning experience. And then I mean that in the sense of, I'm still learning how to do how to use After Effects, and Cinema 4D and all this kind of stuff. So Lightroom and all that crap, all that jazz. I know how to edit stuff together, but like I'm an editor. I'm not a I'm not a graphic designer. So like the lower thirds and whatnot take me a little bit longer to figure out than if I was to have the money to put together a team that would do this kind of thing for me, like a lot of the big podcasters do. And I'm not saying they come from privileged backgrounds or anything like that, but they just they in some way, shape, or form earn their way into better quality product. At some point, the Another Gamer Dad podcast, I would love to have in that same echelon of content creation. So bear with me. We will get there at some point. My wife is seems to be very, very committed. Not just committed. Committed is the wrong word, but she's seems to be completely, fully supportive of this endeavor, much more so than she was, like, maybe even when I started doing like the live streams on a regular basis. And the only reason I was able to do that was because I was laid off. I was getting paid I was getting that lovely, lovely unemployment, which eventually does run out, and it's not nearly as much as you would make if you were actually working. But we fortunately had saved up enough from my previous job that we were able to use that as to make up the other half of what I wasn't earning anymore. But like I had said before, it eventually ran out. That's the crazy thing about money, is if you're not continuously making it, it does eventually run out. So we will be upgrading the podcast, and I am invested in making this a truly remarkable thing, if I can at all. And while I realize that listening to one guy kind of talk for an hour might be considered a lot really boring to a lot of people, um I happen to think I'm a good storyteller, and I think I believe I have a lot of good information to put out, and a whole life or two worth of experience. And I hope everybody out there can see through that. Content over uh, over content over quality is what I almost said, but that's not really what I meant. So like quality is great. If you if you can have great quality content that also looks very nice, that's the goal. That's my goal anyway. And it will take us a minute or two to get there. And while I'm lucky enough that I can find an hour or so out of my day to continue doing this every couple of weeks, I feel blessed enough already. And so I hope you guys realize that the content that I'm putting out there is the important thing, and we'll get to the quality of the, we'll say, the window dressing, if you will, as we progress through another Gamer Dad podcast. Um, Another random thing is, it happens to be, I happen to be recording this on my birthday, January 24th, 2024. I was born in 1982, and for the 42 years that I've been on Earth, the Lions have never still been in the Super Bowl hunt on my birthday before. For any of you guys who've never heard this story before, on January 24th, 1982, the day I was born in Ypsilanti, Michigan, at a hospital called Bayer Hospital. At the time I was born, the Super Bowl was being played. I believe it was Super Bowl 16. It was the San Francisco 49ers and the Cincinnati Bengals. It was being played in Pontiac, Michigan, in the Pontiac Silverdome. It was the only Super Bowl played in the Silverdome. And for a little while there, it was like the first, maybe the only playoff game ever played at Pontiac Silverdome. So, because my whole life, the Lions have kind of been the laughing, outside of maybe a season here, season or two here and there. Lions have been pretty much one of the laughing stocks of the NFL. And so it was a very surreal feeling waking up today, realizing that my Detroit Lions are still going for gold. And I kind of felt a little bit like Will Ferrell in Talladega Nights. I don't know what to do with my hand. Like it was just a surreal feeling. But because of my birth, the day it happened, I've always kind of felt like a spiritual soul like connection to football. And for a long time there, I thought I was going to grow up to lead the Lions to their first Super Bowl, but unfortunately, life decided not to make me that size, NFL size. But when I was coming out of high school and when I would have went into college, there weren't a whole lot of people my size. Now you see them all the time. Rashee Rice is like 5'10". You had Wes Welker out there. You had Julian Edelman. Now I know these guys are retired. Danny Woodhead before that. Khalif Raymond, speaking of the Lions, he's like 5'10", 165, 170 pounds. He can't be any more than that. And so, they, because of the way the rules have been kind of structured to help the offenses, there's a chance maybe I would have been able to, to actually make it now. But because I was a pretty decent player in high school, but again, I didn't develop any size. I would have been the original Wes Welker, and so this was still back when football was looking for bigger people, and there's always going to be somebody a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, whether they're as athletic or they're as good at playing the game than you. Didn't always matter when I was growing up. They didn't want to take the chance of having some small guy go out there and get his brains bashed in and bring ill will towards the franchise. So but just kind of a surreal story that I wanted to kind of go over with you guys, because we will get to the Lions in a little bit. But first, we're going to move on into our video game section. Normally here is where I would go to a commercial break. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we'll probably show a commercial at this point. But, normally this is when the podcast goes to brought to you by our sponsor, Life of Greens or whatever it's called. you know, and eventually I would like to have a commercial. So speaking of which, I drink it every day, twice a day, actually. Field of Greens, fantastic vitamin. I don't not vitamin, fantastic fruits and vegetables makeup because I definitely eat like shite pretty much every day, and I'm always driving around from appointment to appointment, and the last thing I want to do is waste a bunch of time going to a fancy meal. Uh, and so I generally stop at McDonald's or Taco Bell or other fast food restaurants quite a bit. So Field of Greens has been great, great way to get those fruits and vegetables that I neglect on a daily basis. Um, so that this would be a great spot for me to do a commercial for you guys. But anyway, back to the originally scheduled programming. We are talking about video games, specifically about the upcoming games in 2024, because I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I don't have a very high expectation of 2024, to be honest with you, specifically compared to the year that we just had. 2023 was one of the best years I can definitely remember off the top of my head, if not one of the top 3 or 4 years of all time. You have some years that had mega hits like Chrono Trigger coming out, but maybe nothing else. You've had other years where or Final Fantasy VII for that matter. When that came out in '97, that was the biggest game on earth. But honestly, I couldn't even tell you what else came out that year. Now I know there's been other years that I'm totally missing and I'm not thinking of right now that have had. I think '94 for whatever reason jumps out in my mind. But there have been years when there's just been banger after banger after banger, but nothing that can really compare to 2023 in my mind, at least that I completely remember. Like 2023, I mean, I bought probably 20 to 25 new games, which is not normal for me. I usually buy maybe 10 to 12 at the absolute most, if that. There's been years when I've only bought 4 or 5 new games. I know previously I had said that, I have a whole lot of money to to put into the podcast. Uh, Video games haven't always been as expensive as they are now, and but it's something that that's part of the expenditure for the podcast, for the YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel is still, the number one priority, because that's what I'm known for. That's what brought you guys here in the first place, and this is, we're trying to get an addition. But like for reals, like I don't usually play like 20, 25 new games in a year. It's just not. I don't have time for it. When I do buy a new game, I usually like to get 100% of it complete. But there was just so many good ones in 2023 that it was hard for me to 100%. I don't think I 100% at all of them. I maybe one or two. But for the most part, it's beat the game, move on to the next one is how it was. And thinking of the upcoming slate of games coming out, I just don't see that being 2024. And not to say that I'm pessimistic about anything. There is one game coming out at the end of February that is going to be, without a doubt, in my opinion, probably the best game of the year, at least in my top 5, and that's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's the second part of the Final Fantasy VII remake. This has been voted the most anticipated game of 2024 multiple times that I can think of, definitely at the Game Awards, and it's definitely my most anticipated game. But off the top of my head, it's really the only one that I can think of that I'm definitely buying that. I'm going to pre-order it, so I get all the bonus stuff. I'm probably going to get the deluxe edition, so again, I get all that bonus stuff. But there's really nothing else out there that I think that way about. Now I ended up getting the $10 PS5 upgrade to The Last of Us 2, and I know they call it The Last of Us 2 Remastered. It's not really a remaster; it's a PS5 upgrade. But it was only $10, and it is a game that I've always said I really enjoy playing. I just can't get behind the story. The story is terrible. But if you just ignore all the cutscenes and just simply play the game, the gameplay is phenomenal. And so if this is going to upgrade it to the PS5 graphics, maybe we'll give it a go again, and we'll see if maybe now that I've had a chance to kind of really stew on the story for a little bit, maybe it's better than I remember. Probably not. But it is still The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2 are still very fun games to play. And then you also have, the speculation that Elden Ring is going to drop their DLC. Considering that game has been out for 2 years now, I would like to think that the DLC is coming out this year. Prefer hopefully earlier rather than later, but I don't think any actual day of delivery has arrived for the Elden Ring DLC. But those are like little side things, new a new season for Diablo 4, that kind of thing. Nothing like not like a real game that you can get behind and be excited for its release and whatnot. Now there are a few out there that I've heard some about. I've seen a few trailers. There's an Indiana Jones game that's coming out this year, produced by Bethesda. And I mean, I checked out the trailer. It looks okay. It's that same Bethesda engine. So it looks like it looks like Fallout 4, but you're playing as Indiana Jones. It's a first person game. So it reminded me a lot of, shoot, I'm drawing a blank. It was another Bethesda game, about revenge. You played Corvo the killer in the first one. What is the name of this, guys? And I can't think of what it is. It doesn't matter. Those games were phenomenal. Man, what is Death of the Outsider was the third one. Man, I don't know. I can't believe I can't think of what the name of the fucking game is. It's gonna drive me crazy. It's right on the tip of my tongue. You play as Corvo in the first one, then you play as his daughter in the second one. Rick. Oh well, whatever it is. that's what Indiana Jones kind of reminds me of. And if that, Death Proof, not Death Proof, Death Loop, sorry, except for, you have a whip instead of a gun. So there's potential there, but again, it looks like a game that came out for the Xbox 360 or the PS3. It doesn't look like a next generation game in my opinion. Maybe some of the cutscenes, sure. And so, that'll be a game that like I'll probably wait until it comes out, and if I can get it on sale, I'll wait for it to go on sale type of thing. It's not something that makes me think that I have to have it. And I mean, Bethesda hasn't put out anything since Fallout 4 that's really deserved. Like a pre-order and stuff like that. I wasn't a huge fan of Starfield, and I went over the whole reason why. And Fallout 76, we don't even need to get into that debacle. Although I hear it's a lot better now, so maybe we'll get back into it at some point this year. There is Star Wars Outlaws, open world Star Wars game, could be pretty cool. But at the same time, like it doesn't have the same oomph to me. It doesn't have that same like history of say Star Wars Jedi, and I know there's only 2 games. There's only Fallen Order and Survivor. But those are truly unique, fantastic storytelling of canon lore in the Star Wars franchise. It's a Dark Souls game, but it's a Star Wars game. It's a action RPG, but it's also a traditional development RPG, and so they had something special that you could both relate to, you could understand, but at the same time, like it felt exciting because it's in a new environment. You're playing Star Wars in the Dark Souls environment, or vice versa, and it brought to it a certain excitement in just that. And then you watch the trailers and it looks amazing. Like, it looks like a next generation game. Survivor looked like it belonged on the PS5 and on the Xbox Series X. Fallen Order looked like it belonged on Xbox One and PlayStation 4. Whereas Indiana Jones just doesn't. Indiana Jones still has that, back what looks like third generation graphics. Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, that's gotten very great reviews, but again, it's not like a franchise where I'm like, oh man, Like a Dragon, I gotta buy that, gotta buy that. And so even these new games that are coming out, you've got some knockoffs. Life by You seems to be pretty interesting. It's a Sims knockoff. What's most interesting about that is the fact that there hasn't been another Sims game since the Sims have released. Like, you would have thought that there'd be a competitor to the Sims by now, and there hasn't been. So, Life by You is interesting in the fact that it's trying to replicate a genre that has basically belonged to one game in its entirety. And so maybe you're interested in the fact that we're finally getting more games in this genre, even though Life by You might not look super great, or it might not play super great. It's going to be something that you're going to have to play, to decide whether you like it or not. And if it's going to be like The Sims, that's, in my opinion, probably too big of a game to invest in, not knowing what I'm going to get. Reminds me a lot of Fallout 76. Fallout 76 was coming out. It was going to be the open world multiplayer MMO Fallout game, and and so I invested in it right out the gate, and only to find out that one, it wasn't a completely finished game. Two, it's got a bunch of different flaws that make it something that I don't really care to play. Specifically, I still can't believe that, like, you put up a you put up a building, or you have a home base created, and then you get auto merged into another server that already has a base in that spot. So yours gets up and disappeared, and you got to put it somewhere else. Like, it just, they're just, and lo and behold, come to find out, 6 months later, they're like, hey, you want to stop all this? Here's how. Pay more money. Join Fallout First, or Fallout One, whatever their subscription service is. Like, it's just too much of an investment for me. I don't play Final Fantasy 14 for the same thing. Like, I got duped into buying Destiny 2 for years and years and years, and that game never got any better. A matter of fact, it actually got worse year by year. But yet I kept pouring money into it, and so I'm not a dupe. I'm not one of these mindless bogs who just buy video games to buy video games. Like, it has to be a worthwhile investment to me. And if you're going to make a Sims knockoff or a Sims competitor, I got to know it's going to be worth the investment. Speaking of Obsidian, they have a game coming out, Avowed, which is supposed to be like a Skyrim knockoff. Now, it's not supposed to be as big or as time consuming as Skyrim, but I mean, that's kind of the vibe they're giving off. And so, we've heard this before. Granted, I I believe, and I have more faith in Obsidian than I do in Bethesda. Bethesda said Starfield was going to be Skyrim in space, end quote, beginning quote, end quote, verbatim, Skyrim in space. And it turned out to be not that. And so, like, now I'm worried that every game that is somewhat open world like Skyrim is just going to be called Skyrim, or a Skyrim knockoff, or the next Skyrim, or Skyrim in space, or Skyrim in future world or whatever. But it's not going to compare to Skyrim. Like, Skyrim in that genre is by far the number one, in my opinion. Like, I've spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours in that game, and you still see people streaming it constantly, all the time. People play it all the time. It's still one of the best-selling games out there. A lot like Grand Theft Auto 5. Uh, GTA 6 was announced, and we have a trailer for that, but I have no idea. It doesn't seem like it's going to come out this year. And so 2024 might just end up being like the overlooked year. You've got Pal World, I guess, has done very, very well. That's the Pokemon knockoff, or the Pokemon competitor, for a better term, nicer term. Seems to be again, a very popular game, but I wasn't a big Pokemon player, and so a lot of these games coming out just don't seem to either be in my world of expertise, or B, they just don't seem to, right now anyway, be worth the investment. Now, I might, later down the year, I might come back to you and go, "Oh my God, Life by You is the greatest game I've ever played. Like, I can't believe we took so long to get this game out." Or, Indiana Jones comes around, and I'm like, "Holy shit, this is just like playing the movie. This is fantastic. Like, I can't believe I was sleeping on this game." But I just don't see it in 2024. So I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but I kind of want to be a realist about this. And in my opinion, I don't know if it necessarily matters. I mean, people buy Madden every year, even though that game is terrible and it gets worse and worse every iteration. People buy Call of Duty every 6 months, even though, again, that game, it's been the same game for 15 years. And every once in a while they throw a new map in, or whatnot. Now, a bunch of the campaigns of the earlier games were really, really good, but the campaign on this new Call of Duty, got horrendous backlash. Just got ripped to shreds by how bad it was. And I mean, as a person who is now a dad and has to kind of be aware of more things, and I've become more aware of this stuff long before I became a dad. But I mean, Call of Duty is really, like, the campaign is really just American imperialistic propaganda. Like, and I can't play these games and not realize that they're just trying to make it look like anything America does is righteous and cool and badass and heroic and for the good of mankind, and everybody else is a terrorist. I can't watch that knowing how America treats its foreign policy and be excited about that anymore, because it's just not the truth. Like, it looks like propaganda, it feels like propaganda, plays out like propaganda. And so it's taken a lot of interest from that kind of genre away from me. And if it hasn't for you, if you still enjoy playing the same game over and 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 over again, like a lot of the the big streamers do, i.e. Dr. Disrespect, Tim the Tap Man, they all, Valorant, or no, sorry, not Valorant, Valkyrie, they play the same game over and over and over again. And that's cool. If that's your thing, have at it, Haas. But, again, that brings up, is 2024 going to be even worth it this year? Because if all these people are only playing the one game over and over again, it means that the rest of the releases that year weren't good enough to draw anybody's attention. And so, I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy here. I'm actually looking at this in a positive way. I think this is actually great because we had so many great games last year, and because what I think is going to be the best game of the year is coming out so early, to February 28th, it's going to give me a lot of time to go back into my backlog, which wasn't touched at all last year, and so it's going to give me a chance to go back and play these games that I have already purchased, and actually get into them, get a chance to really delve into them and try and 100% them. And that actually somewhat excites me for 2024. But as an overall, I don't think the 2024 releases outside of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and the possibility of one or two extra, are gonna really be all that exciting. And but I that's just my opinion. I would love to know what you guys think about this in the comments. Let me know. Is there something that I'm sleeping on? Is there a game coming out that you're like, no, this is it, man. Put your betting hats on, because this is underrated, and the odds of this being great are 100%. Please let me know, because I love those kind of games that come out of nowhere. We've known Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is coming. We were just told a couple of months ago when it was coming, but it's been something that I've been excited for at least the last 3 years, since the release of Final Fantasy VII Remake. But none of these other ones, Outlaws, I heard a little bit about. Indiana Jones, I didn't even know about until I saw the trailer. Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, again, just one that's kind of gone by the wayside because I'm not a Like a Dragon franchise guy. Pal World kind of came out of nowhere for most people, I think, and I think a lot of the success is because it is a Pokemon game, and we're kind of in between Pokemon updates right now. So we'll see if that excitement for Pal World continues when Pokemon does drop new content. And then there's just the every year franchises that EA Sports specifically puts out, and then the Activision stuff. And so it's interesting to me to see how the year is going to go, and I would love to know what you guys think. Is it going to be a down year? Is it going to be a great year? Let me know if I'm sleeping on something down in the comments below, because I would love to hear you guys' take on this. And after this short commercial break, we'll continue into the sports section. I'm going to take a drink of coffee real quick. Coffee. Starbucks, you want to sponsor your boy? Shoot, any small independent coffee makers? Love coffee. I will drink it every stream. Looking at time. Oh, not too bad. We're probably going to be less time than we were the first one, but we'll see. Moving on into our next section, we're going to get into what I probably am most excited about talking about right now, and that's my brand new Detroit Lions. And anybody who's followed me for a while knows that I have been a Lions fan for as long as I can remember. The first time I really remember being excited for the team was 1989 when they drafted Barry Sanders 3rd overall, and he became the new face of our franchise. But outside of a few years with him, maybe a couple of years with Stafford and Calvin Johnson, for the most part, the Lions haven't been good. And I wish I could add good enough, but that's not the case. They just haven't been good. We were the first team ever to go 0-16. We've had 1-win seasons, 2-win seasons, 3-win seasons. We started off last season 1-6 before we went on a tremendous run and end up finishing 9-8, game out of the playoffs. But this year has been super different. This year we've been consistently pretty good outside of a game here or there. We won 12 games for the first time since I think 1991. We won the division for the first time ever. Now I'm talking specifically the NFC North. The Detroit Lions had won it a couple of times when it was the NFC Central, but since the realignment and it became 4 divisions and the NFC North, we have yet to, up until this year, we hadn't even sniffed a championship. We've been, we've had seasons where it looked like we had the possibility of winning the division, but went on to just be, another second or third place finish, a few games out of the division title, with no real chance at a Super Bowl run. And so this season has been incredibly different. There's a way different feeling towards this team. The For the first time that I can remember, not the players on the team, but the administration itself. So Sheila Ford Hamp, the CEO of the team, Brad Holmes, the GM, Dan Campbell, the head coach, Aaron Glenn, and Ben Johnson, the two coordinators. It just feels like they know how to run things. They have a game plan, and that game plan is finally taking fruit. It's fine. It was planted. It was a flower planted three years ago, and it's finally starting to bloom into adulthood. And it looks and feels like we have competent people leading the charge. We have young players that look like they want to stay around. We've been able to bring in veterans like Emmanuel Mosley, and I know he doesn't play anymore because he suffered that injury. But we also, we brought in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who had just come from Philadelphia, who made it to the Super Bowl, and everybody thought was just going to make it back to the Super Bowl this year. He comes over to the Lions because he wants to play for Dan Campbell. It is a generally new feeling for us Lions fans, because we haven't had that ever, outside of like the 50s, which I clearly wasn't around for. And I don't believe a whole lot of our fans were around for the 50s when we did win a couple of championships. It just doesn't. We just haven't had that kind of success ever in our lifetime, and so for it to be happening now, I can't tell you the excitement that I have for this team and the future going forward. Not just for the team itself, but the city of Detroit. Like Detroit, and I know a lot of people will say this is not true, but Detroit doesn't have much. I know they've been trying to tout this renaissance of Detroit for years now. But the truth is, I go back to Michigan. My family still lives in Michigan. I still have a pretty decent grasp on what's going on in Michigan. And it's not like this renaissance was like, like a golden age turnaround. Sure, are there new places that people can go downtown and stuff like that? Sure, yeah, you've got Motor City Casino now and everything like that. But where, outside of Vegas and even in Vegas, where they put casinos? The fucking ghetto, bro. Because that's what you get. Like there's a great joke in The Wire when Mayor Carcetti just takes office, and his administration is telling him that he has to build something downtown, put your name on it, so you leave behind a legacy. And he brings up, how about casinos? Every single person on that panel goes, bro, because they know what kind of culture that brings in, and so this idea that Detroit, and I hate to agree with Stephen A. Smith, because I think that dude's a fucking clown. Skip Bayless is even worse, but that's for another day. But I mean, Stephen A. Smith wasn't that off when he said that Detroit was on a respirator until the Lions came to town, came back to life. And so it just really is great for me as a fan, great for the city of Detroit as fans. We've stuck by one of the worst franchises in history forever, and I mean, I remember years on years on years, by game 5, 6 of the season, you're seeing signs: Ford, sell the team, please, for God, the love of all things holy, sell the team, Fords. Bring in someone else, fire this guy, fire that guy, and I have to admit I'm guilty of that as well. Earlier in the season, I'm yelling on Twitter that the Lions have to get rid of Aaron Glenn, and a part of me still thinks that, like, we've been absolutely owned by mobile quarterbacks in the Aaron Glenn era. But the truth is, our defense is playing better than I can ever remember them playing. Period. They they absolutely don't allow anybody on the ground, and while they give up a ton of yards and a bunch of points through the passing game, it hasn't been those times where they've given up so much, or they haven't been able to make key stops on key drives to really turn the game in our favor. And that's something that we've seen a lot lately. Aiden Hutchinson has come on strong. He had three sacks against Dak Prescott when we played at Dallas. And I mean, without those key stops in the second half, it might end up being a blowout. We might not get the chance to go down the field, score a touchdown, and then go for two to try and win it at the end of the game. Like those, or Derek Barnes last week against Tampa Bay when he comes up with that interception on Tampa Bay's final drive to seal the victory for the Lions, to send them to this week's championship game. Like that, that's just not something that we've been accustomed to. We're more used to KJ Osborne, the fourth wide receiver on the Minnesota Vikings roster, getting this wide open touchdown pass at the end of the game, and there's the closest person to him is the fans in the stands. Like that's the defense that we're used to. We're used to watching Matt Stafford and Calvin Johnson put up 50 points, but the defense giving up 55. Like that's just kind of how it's been. And so, Matt Campbell and his coaching staff and Brad Holmes, they've really come in, they've really changed the culture, and they've got players that nobody thought were going to be very good. You guys might not know this. Fans of the Lions might not remember this, but after the draft, last March or whatever it was, every expert on the books gave the Lions an F for their draft. Like they said this was a terrible draft. There's nobody in this draft that we couldn't have gotten later. Jahmyr Gibbs goes at 12. Oh, he went too high. You could have got him in second round. Jack Campbell is a third round talent. What are you climbing back up in the draft for to take him in the first? Oh my God, who is, Brian Branch? Like, why are you taking him so high? Sam Laporta, like, who is this dude? He had 2 touchdowns in 4 years at Iowa. And they're, lo and behold, those guys that we grabbed this year, specifically Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, and Brian Branch, are all up for, Gibbs and Laporta are front runners for Rookie of the Year. Now, I think that's going to go to C.J. Stroud, but that's neither here or there, mostly because, if you have 2 teammates from the same team, they tend to take votes away from each other. But it's a quarterback-driven league, so I would have thought they would give it to C.J. Stroud anyway, because, as a rookie quarterback, to win your division and then win your first playoff game is incredible. Brian Branch should be nominated for Defensive Rookie of the Year. There's not a single defensive rookie out there that I can think of that deserves it over him. Maybe Will Menaker, I think is what his name is, the linebacker from Houston, who, again, because they were so successful with, rookie quarterback, rookie franchise linebacker, rookie head coach, they go on that 10-game run and win their division, and a first-round playoff game is pretty impressive, and it's hard to beat. But I mean, Brian Branch is all over the place. He's playing corner, he's playing slot, he's playing safety, he's blitzing, he's causing fumbles, he's picking people off. Like, he is having one of the most tremendous years for a guy that was allegedly picked up 100 picks too early. that you can't ignore, that, there is something that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell like in players, search out for in players, and get the best out of said type of players. And it's been truly amazing to watch. And I am very, very excited for this upcoming weekend when we travel to San Francisco and we take on the 49ers for the right to go to the Super Bowl and represent the NFC. A couple of weeks ago when I did the my playoff predictions, I picked them. I said it might be more heart than head, but I picked them to go into San Francisco and beat the 49ers, and I'm sticking to that. I have full confidence that we can go in there and win the game. And it's, if you think about how they can do it, we match up with the 49ers very, very well. On offense, we are a run-first power football team. And I know it's hard to say because, we've created so many big plays over the year, but those big plays stem from the fact that we love to get gritty and physical at the offensive line and really pound you into submission and get those nasty 3-4 yard runs constantly to the point where we just beat you and beat you down, and we bite those kneecaps off, until you can't protect us anymore. And then once you're tired of the run and you're stacking the box against the run because you can't stop it, that's when we do the play action pass and dump it over your head. We have incredible yards after catch receivers, starting with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Then we've got the middle of the field covered with Sam Laporta. Now we have Zach Ertz, who comes in to fill a spot that is now vacated because of the injury to Brock Wright. And while Zach Ertz might not be the blocker Brock Wright is, he's definitely an upgrade in the passing game. So now not only do you have Sam Laporta coming around the middle of the field that you have to look out for, and now you have another tight end that's going to be matched up probably on a linebacker right around the middle of the field that he can also catch and run, who's won a Super Bowl. He won with the Eagles a few years ago when Nick Foles was the quarterback. And so, you bring in not only an experienced guy, but an upgrade in a situation where you can really use that to your advantage. The 49ers are a zone defense. Their whole identity is being able to play in a zone with 4 down linemen getting pressure on the quarterback, and they're not going to be able to do that against the Detroit offensive line. The Detroit offensive line is the best in the NFL, and I know we can argue till you're blue in the face whether it's the Lions or the Eagles, but the Eagles are out. So without a doubt, the best remaining offensive line is the Detroit Lions. And so if you think you're going to be able to send 4 and get constant pressure on Jared Goff, Goff is just going to hand the ball off. He's going to dump it off to Amon-Ra. He's going to dump it off to Josh Reynolds. He's going to dump it off to Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs. Even David Montgomery is getting in the short passing game. We're going to hit these 5-6 yard outs on a consistent basis. And if you give Amon-Ra 5-6 opportunities, he's going to break a tackle and take it 30 yards for a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to break a tackle. He won't even break a tackle. He's going to make a dude miss, in open space. Like, he's just that good of a playmaker, and he's going to take it 60 yards for a touchdown. And so I think the offense has a huge advantage on the 49ers. Aaron Jones just last week for Green Bay ran for 133 yards or something like that. And yes, Aaron Jones, great player. And yes, he missed a bunch of time during the regular season, so he had fresh legs. He's not Jahmyr Gibbs. Maybe he's a better pass receiver than David Montgomery, but he's not a better downhill runner than David Montgomery. So we've got you on both ends. We've got the guy that can make a jump cut and take it 60 yards because he runs a 4.3 40. We've got the guy who can, meet a tackler at the line of scrimmage and push you 4 yards for a first down. Like, it's just not the same game plan as the Green Bay Packers. And so on the ground, specifically the running game, the 49ers have not played anybody this year that stand up to that. And so I think and again, the zone defense is going to leave all these crossing routes, which we love to do. Jared Goff is at his best when he's clean in the pocket and throwing to the middle of the field. That's what we do. That is what the Lions do. And that is the weakness to the 49ers defense. They've been able to all year long get pressure with 4 guys, maybe 5 on occasion, but they're not going to be able to sit back and play their zone defense because they're not going to get consistent pressure if they're only bringing 4 guys. And so they're going to have to blitz a lot more than they're probably comfortable with, and that's going to open up the downfield throws, which who's the best in the league at downfield throws right now? Jared Goff. And so our offense, I think, really does have an advantage over the defense. On the flip side of the ball, our defense is playing very, very well right now, and we are able to get pressure because we do like to blitz. We bring safeties down. We disguise our coverage very well, and we've got the best pass rusher in the league. And I can't believe I'm saying this because, it didn't look like he was going to be all that great. He had a terrible start to the season, but Aiden Hutchinson has found whatever it is he needed to find to become an elite football player. And, he's been able to do it for the last 6-7 weeks on a consistent basis. He had, I think, 5.5 sacks for the first 15 games of the season, and he finished with 9.5 after the last 2 games. He had 5 sacks. He had 2 last week. He had 2 the week before that, and so he's found something, or Aaron Glenn has been able to get him open on a consistent basis. And those pressures, now he was one of the leading pressure guys in the NFL all season long, and those pressures are finally leading to not just sacks for him, but turnovers now. CJ Gardner-Johnson comes back from injured reserve, has an interception in his first game back, has an interception last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You've got linebackers like Derek Barnes, who has never had an interception in his life. He's been in the league 3 years now. He gets his first ever interception, happens to be at the biggest play of his career. He needed to make a play. We needed somebody to make a play, and boom, he was right there to intercept that pass from Baker Mayfield to end the game. And so our defense is playing really, really well, and our defensive line is going to get pressure on Brock Purdy. Now, if you can get pressure on Brock Purdy, as much as I like the kid, you can frustrate him. The Green Bay Packers were able to get pressure on him last week, and I mean, they dropped 2 for sure interceptions that could have completely changed the complexion of the game. Like, turnovers are key, takeaways are key. And if they get those 2 picks, there's a very good chance we're hosting a third Lions home playoff game this year and playing Green Bay for the NFC Championship instead of going to San Francisco. So, we're going to be able to get pressure on Purdy. And I think we're going to be able to frustrate him enough to where he probably throws a bad pass or 2. The other key thing, they've got the best running back in football. Christian McCaffrey has been absolutely phenomenal, leading rusher on the season. He's got, if not the most, tied for the most touchdowns. But the Lions' defensive front hasn't allowed a 70-yard rusher all season. All season. That includes Rachaad White last week, who only had 55, and Kyron Williams, who's been on an absolute tear, I think had 61 or something like that. And so we can stop the run. And while Christian McCaffrey is also a very viable receiver out of the backfield, being able to stop the run and forcing the 49ers to be pass heavy works in our favor, because now we can send the house at you and If you don't get it off quick, it's probably going to be a tackle for a loss. We can stop those wing backs from coming around and getting end arounds, and we're recognizing plays now, so we're not biting on reverses and stuff. And so I think our defensive front really has an advantage with that pressure and being able to stop the run. What I think the icing on the cake is the way Cam Sutton has been playing. Now, he has not been playing at an elite level. He has not been playing like a Darrelle Revis shutdown corner. But for the last 5-6 weeks, we've had him specifically on the opposing number one. And yes, they get big numbers. Let's go down the line. So 2 matchups against Justin Jefferson, a matchup against CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, Mike Evans. Like, he's been able to limit these guys to, a bunch of splash plays, maybe, a bunch of yards here and there, but nothing that takes the game away from the Lions. He's been able to let these people have their success, but at the same time, not letting the game get out of hand. Now you're talking about going up against Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, who are both fantastic receivers in their own right. They are not Justin Jefferson. They are not CeeDee Lamb. They are not Puka Nacua. They are not Mike Evans. These guys have had world-class years. And again, Deebo Samuel, great player, very versatile. He can be a running back and everything. Brandon Ayuk is a very good route runner. These are not tier 1 wide receivers. And so Cam Sutton actually gets a break in all reality this week when he goes up against, and I don't know if he'll be covering Deebo. Deebo might not even play. He got hurt last week. So we'll see how that goes. But whichever one he decides to be on might have a decent day statistic wise, but is probably not going to make enough game changing plays to really affect the outcome. Now, they do have George Kittle, which is a little concerning to me. Jack Campbell, again, is a rookie. Alex Anzalone is not the best in coverage. But again, we've been able to play this versatile defense where we have our safeties rotating positions, and instead of straight up man coverage outside of the corners, we can have Brian Branch come in and jump on a tight end, or we can make it, we can disguise our coverage. It can look like Brian Branch has George Kittle, and then all of a sudden, just before the snap, he backs out, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson or Kirby Joseph comes up, and he's able to cover a tight end, And so this versatility, this ability to be able to disguise our coverages, I think really works in our favor. And I know I might be drinking the Honolulu Blue Kool-Aid, but I 100% honestly believe that the Lions are going to go into San Francisco and beat the 49ers. I can't believe that it's a 7-point game according to Vegas odds. If you're a gambling man, I try not to be because I'm a little bit of a degenerate gambler, and if I if I started doing that, I'd probably waste all the money that I have on gambling, because these stupid phone apps make it just too easy. But for Vegas to set the line at Niners -7 is absurd to me. I at best, I think this is a 3-point game. But I, again, 100% honestly, as I look into your guys' eyes, honestly believe that the Lions can go in to Levi Stadium and upset the the reigning NFC West champions. Like, I would not be surprised at all. And I've been telling my friends this. I've been telling them for a long time, don't be surprised when the Lions are very successful, because this is a special team, and I've been watching them a long time, and I have never you can ask a lot of my friends. I have said, they're a good team this year. I have never called them a special team, and that's That's what they are this year. There is something different in the air in Detroit, and it is affecting the way this team has been playing. Dan Campbell has these guys playing at a way above average, elite level. And it's something I've never experienced, so it's very surreal to me, and it's, it's crazy having this kind of confidence in my team, but it is different from before, whereas I used to just I'm picking the Lions because they're the Lions. I'm not picking the Lions because they're the Lions. I'm picking the Lions because these are the brand new Lions, and they have left all of that baggage in the past, and they are ready to play football, and they're going to come, and they're going to be gritty, and they're going to get knocked down. They're going to get back up. You're going to knock them down again. They're going to get back up, and eventually they're going to be the last team standing. And I have 100% confidence that they will represent the NFC in the Super Bowl this year in Vegas, and I can't wait. I got to start looking at at how to save up money to go to that game, but there's no doubt in my mind that they can do it. Will they? I mean, it's the NFL. Any given Sunday, bad drop here, bad bounce there, can totally change the term of a game. But I fully believe that they have every opportunity to upset the 49ers this weekend, and I think they're going to. And I can't wait for it to happen. So it's been a long time coming. And I mean, shoot, after that first playoff game, I literally, I was one of those fans that had tears in my eyes because I honestly never thought I would see the day. One last thing before we jump off the Lions game here and get into Chiefs at Ravens. Major shout out to my current favorite player, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sun God himself. Saint was elected to as a first team All-Pro. Now on my other podcast, the Straight Outta Sin City podcast, early in the season, I had mentioned that I thought Amon-Ra was going to be a top three, 4, 5. I think I said top 5 receiver this year, and a lot of the other people on the podcast sneered and snickered and laughed at that statement. So for him to be elected to the All-Pro team just proves that I was right. And I couldn't be happier for him because he's a great dude. Speaking of, athletes with podcasts, he and his brother have a great podcast, and he is generally someone who wants to bring success to Detroit and wants to not just bring success, but sustain continued success in Detroit. And I'm all for it. So, congratulations to him. Very, very well earned on a remarkable 1,500 yard season. So congratulations to him. Now on the flip side, 2 weeks ago when I made my playoff predictions, I said that the Ravens were going to go to the Super Bowl from the AFC. However, I was incorrect on the Final Four team. I did get 3 out of the 4. I said it was going to be Lions, 49ers, and then it was going to be Browns at Ravens for the AFC. And had Joe Flacco not turned into the $100 million Joe Flacco, if he would have continued to play the rookie rookie contract Super Bowl winning Joe Flacco, there's quite the possibility that we might have been talking about the Browns at Ravens for the AFC title. But alas, that's not what happened. Alas, Patrick Mahomes, the greatest player in football right now, does what he does best, and that's make it to the AFC Championship. I did not know this before. I think yesterday I saw this stat, but Mahomes has been the starting quarterback for Kansas City for the last 6 years. He has never finished less than the AFC Championship in those 6 years, meaning he has gone to the conference championship every year he's been a starting quarterback in the NFL. He has won 2 Super Bowls. He's gone to 3. That is absolutely amazing to me. That is Tom Brady stuff right there. Tom Brady at one point averaged a Super Bowl every other year. Right now, Patrick Mahomes, if you don't count the fact that his rookie season he only played the one game, uh, since he's taken over as the starting quarterback for Kansas City, he has averaged a Super Bowl appearance anyway every 2 years, and so you know, he's battle tested. He's the best in the game right now, and he apparently took a lot of offense to everybody thinking that they weren't going to do very well in the playoffs this year, because he was able to he was able to beat the Miami Dolphins, who, granted, that was probably more of the Chiefs' defense. They limited it to 7 points, the highest scoring offense in the league, held to 7 points. But he was able to garner a win there, and then he was able to go into Buffalo and get a W. And I know Buffalo has a lot of injuries, specifically in the linebacker core, and so he was able to take advantage of that with the greatest tight end of all time, Travis Kelce. I don't know if I would consider him the greatest of all time. There are some really good ones. Him and Gronk, though, are probably 1 and 2, 1A, 1B. You know. But they were able to exploit it, and that's what good teams do. They find a weakness, they exploit that weakness, and they survive in advance. That's what it takes in the NFL playoffs. You got to survive in advance, and they've done so 6 straight years, AFC Conference Championship appearances. It's truly a remarkable feat, and so it's very hard to count them out. Because again, they've been there, and Lamar hasn't had great success in the playoffs, and it's got me kind of second guessing my AFC pick. I would not be surprised if the Chiefs go into Baltimore and beat the Ravens, because they have the defense that can limit Lamar on the ground. They have a defense that can lock down those receivers who are not top tier receivers. Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham Jr. Maybe at one point, Odell Beckham was like a true tier 1 wide receiver one, and maybe at some point in his career, Zay Flowers has a Calvin Johnson like career, but they're not there right now. Odell has been hurt several times, and it's really kind of he's lost a step because of it. And it's hard to say that, because I like the dude as a person. I think he's a great player, but he's not the player that he was in New York. And Zay Flowers is great for a rookie, but he's been up and down all season long. He'll have a game where he's got 1 catch for 5 yards, and that's it. And so, the Chiefs' defense can really, really put the pressure on their offense. But Lamar is probably going to be the most, he's probably the most likely to be the MVP this year. And that's probably deservedly so. They had the best record in football. He's the quarterback of that team that had the best record in football. That's usually who wins MVP. And so I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going to pick Lamar Jackson to probably to win the MVP this year over Christian McCaffrey or Tyreek Hill, because it's quarterback driven league. But at the same time, like it's hard to pick against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in Kansas City when they've had the kind of success that they've had. But I picked them originally. I picked them to beat the Cleveland Browns. I'm still picking them to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Although I think this is going to be a much different game than it would have been had the Browns made it. If the Browns made it and the Browns are playing at Baltimore, it's probably more likely like a 31-24 game. Whereas Chiefs Ravens, I'm actually probably leaning more towards it's going to be about maybe 24-21, 21-17. I think it's going to be a much closer game. I think it's going to be. I don't think the Baltimore Ravens were expecting, nor do I think they wanted to see the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs this year. And so I think right now all the pressure is on Baltimore, and that might be the tipping point, which gives the Chiefs the advantage. But I'm going to stick with my original statement. I'm going to go with the Ravens to win the AFC Championship. Now I'm a couple of weeks later, we'll get into who I'm actually picking to win the Super Bowl. But right now I have the Ravens over the Lions in the Super Bowl. But depending on how they play this weekend, that might change. Oh man. All right, another commercial break would be right here. Again, if you're on YouTube, you're probably going to get some ads, skippable ads. Obviously, I don't want to waste all of your time. But what's another brand that could really sponsor me? Shure mics. Shure mics. I have 2 of your mics right now. I plan on getting a few more because I would really like to get an ensemble set, not just for this podcast, obviously, but for the Straight Outta Sin City podcast. And any other podcasts that I might be taking part in the future. I would really like to get like a studio set up where we can have nice discussions with good sounding audio, and everybody gets a good mic. So Shure microphones, if you're listening, please sponsor the show. All right. So for my last topic of the day, and who knows, man? I was thinking this was going to be a little bit shorter. No, that football, the sports section ran a little bit long, but we'll see. For the final section, we're going to get into our film talk. I kind of want to, again, as a dad, I don't get to watch nearly as many movies as I usually do. I mean, when I was in college, shoot, I worked at the local movie theater. I would go in on one of my days off, usually on a Saturday or a Sunday, when I didn't have class and I didn't have to work. I would go in at 11 o'clock when we'd open, and I would have like a set time out where I would see all the new movies. I would see one at 11 o'clock. I would go to the next one at 2:15. I'd go to the next one at 4:30, and then the final one at like 6:45 or whatever it was. And I would spend the day at the movie theater watching all the new movies that came out that weekend. And so, and when I first moved out here to LA, I had a friend that worked at, I don't even know if it exists anymore, but the ArcLight in Sherman Oaks. He and I used to go to movies all the time because he got free passes and stuff. When my wife and I first started dating, that's what we did. We went to movies, cause she's a big, now she mostly likes like foreign films and stuff like that. And so, what we would watch would differ greatly between film and film, but we would watch movies, and as as new parents, it's a lot harder for us to get out and watch a movie nowadays because we can't really take Christopher to the theater with us because the poor kid. And it's not his fault. He just doesn't have the ability to sustain, a 2.5, maybe 3 hour film that isn't Cocomelon. Maybe if we were to go to like a Disney film where it had a lot of like singing and dancing every 10 to 15 minutes or so, maybe something that a bunch of other really young kids were going to be there, so it didn't really matter if you made a lot of noise. But I'm not gonna take them to see Killers of the Flower Moon, like, and then it gets expensive because we don't have any family in LA with us. They're our closest relatives are in Las Vegas. The rest are in Michigan and London. So it's not like we can send them over to Grandpa's house so Grandpa can watch them and my wife and I can go on a little date night. No, we've got to find a sitter. We've got to pay that sitter, and then we can go and enjoy the movie. But even when we have the sitter and sitters that we trust, we're still thinking about, hey, we gotta how's Christopher doing? You know, you think he's doing okay? Maybe we should check in with the babysitter. And so we're not really there to watch the movie. We're more so there to just kind of get away for a little bit. And so, you know, we don't get to enjoy movies as much, films as much as we used to. Although that brings up my topic for the day, for today, the state of filmmaking in the streaming era, because streaming has both really helped out new parents like ourselves and parents of multiple kid families and stuff. But at the same time, it's also saturated the environment with absolute garbage, hot garbage. And so my question I pose to you guys, the audience, what do you think of the state of filmmaking? Are we in the golden era, a newly minted golden era, and streaming has revolutionized the filmmaking experience? Or are we in this lull period where streaming has dumbed down the audience and made it so easy for companies like Netflix and Amazon Prime to make these garbage videos that we just consume on a daily basis because it's free? Has it destroyed and decayed the state of filmmaking today? That's my question to you guys below. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. What is your take on the state of filming today? Because I know, in some aspects, it feels really good for consumers, i.e., Amazon Prime is a great example because, not only do you get Prime Video, but you also, you get the 2-day free shipping from Amazon. You get the discounts on special Amazon deals and stuff like that. But on top of that, you also get the Prime Video. So it's and not everything on there is absolute ass. They've got a bunch of good content. But at the same time, the content that they do have shifts on a pretty regular basis. For example, my wife and I watched Groundhog Day, and she wanted to watch it again because it's kind of a hard movie to follow the first time you see it. And so she wanted to go back and watch it, but the free aspect of it had ended already. And I don't know if it's because we watched it the one time or if we just happened to, catch it on a bad day. And but she went to watch it a second time, and it was asking her to either rent or purchase the digital copy. And so, that detracted her, that deterred her from watching what I think is one of Bill Murray's greatest films. And hopefully at some point it will go back to the just being able to watch it with Prime Video, and get to take a look at it. But I don't know. They do have other stuff like Man in the High Castle. I thought was a very good TV show. Got a little long-winded kind of at the end there, but the first 2-3 seasons I thought were fantastic. The Chloe Grace Moretz TV show my wife and I are watching right now, The Peripheral, is actually getting pretty interesting. Kind of seemed like it would be a cool concept, and then it didn't seem to really pan out after that first episode, first 2 episodes. But it's now kind of picked up, and like it's actually getting pretty good. So others, Rings of Power, I didn't really care for, but I hear The Big Wheel or whatever it is. And then Orlando Bloom is in another TV show. So they've got quite a variety of stuff that has potential, and I think that's good for consumers. On the flip side, you have Netflix, who was at one point the best deal in movies, has increased their prices so much and cracked down on password sharing so much that it doesn't really seem as worth it anymore. When they were first putting out original content, like, it was really, really good stuff, and now again you get oversaturated with mediocre at best AI writing, with a bunch of actors that you've never heard of, and you've never heard of them because they're not that great, and so this call for just consuming and consuming and consuming content at the expense of quality has degraded Netflix a lot, in my opinion, over the last few years. Now we still pay for it, because there's my wife loves the Korean dramas. She loves watching the Bollywood films and stuff, and so we because we expose ourselves to a lot of different things and a lot of foreign content, we still get probably a better uh, return on investment than a lot of people. But if you're one of these types that you don't watch Korean dramas, you don't watch Japanese films, you don't watch Bollywood type movies because you'd rather watch a movie than read it. I totally get that. Like I grew up in Michigan. There's a bunch of us out there that feel that exact same way. And so, if that's not really your type, if you're kind of just focused on the American stuff, you've probably watched most of what is available out there, and the new stuff is not as good. That's the truth. It's just not as good, and that's because again, Netflix is more about content consumption than it is about quality content. They would rather have more options than better options, and so in that case, the streaming era has degraded filmmaking. Filmmakers in general, Christopher Nolan, Martin Scorsese, Todd Phillips of Joker, John Chu, these guys are all very well established filmmakers that have come out with absolutely fantastic films. John Chu turned down Crazy Rich Asians because he had a passion project that he wanted to do. Todd Phillips wanted to do the Joker, and Warner Brothers basically told him that the CEO of Warner Brothers at the time, Emmerich, I think is his name. He thought it was a terrible idea, and he didn't want to do it. So he lowballed Todd Phillips, and Todd Phillips, being the filmmaker that he is, with the clout behind his name, was able to find other backers and get Joker out into the movie theaters. And good on him for doing it, because it went to be, it went to cash in $1 billion worldwide, and it got 11 Academy Award nominations. So, um, filmmakers out there that know what they're doing, that know that they have a good project, they can really make or break the future of filmmaking. Martin Scorsese can't stand Marvel movies. Christopher Nolan despises this idea of streaming because it squashes the movie. So to be able to put these movies up on their website and not have to pay these outrageous storage fees for online content, they compress the films a lot, and so if you're compressing these films, you're not getting them at full quality. And a filmmaker like Christopher Nolan, who is very specific in, I'm shooting this in IMAX, or I want this in I want this in a very certain aspect ratio or a certain frame rate. You don't get that. You don't see that as much if you're limited in scope to a compression that is going to be able to put um, this film up on the internet. And at the same time, you can't guarantee the type of environment you're going to be watching this at. Like Oppenheimer at home off two 10-watt TV speakers on a 55-inch 4K TV is not going to be the same as seeing it in IMAX with the full 9.1.2 surround sound feature that Christopher Nolan designs this film to be seen at. And so they don't like this idea of streaming. They don't like this idea of content consumption over quality. I mean, I tend to agree with Martin Scorsese. I'm so tired of Marvel films that I almost don't want to see anymore. Like I really enjoyed the Spider-Man films with Tom Holland. I think he's a fantastic Spider-Man. I think Zendaya is a fantastic. I don't think her name is Mary Jane. I think it's something else in that movie, in that particular venture. But outside of Spider-Man, like I wasn't gung ho for the Avengers, not adventures. Sorry, Avengers. Like I saw Infinity War, and then I went to see Endgame, and it was the exact same movie outside of 30 minutes. They're both 3 hour run times, and the only difference in both movies is about 30 minutes worth of content. So, so no, I'm not excited to see that kind of stuff, and I, while I think there's a couple coming out, the Wolverine movie could be pretty good because Hugh Jackman really takes that role seriously, and he's got enough clout behind his name that he actually has an influence on how that movie is made. Ryan Reynolds with Deadpool, same thing. Like he's got enough clout behind him that he can say, no, Deadpool is this character that I've developed, and actually get away with it. Where a lot of young filmmakers can't do that. A lot of young filmmakers go to these companies and say, hey, I've got an idea. Can I have some money to make it? And the studio goes, yeah, your idea is great, except for we want more of this, less of this. And the only way you're going to get to make it is if you make those changes, because no one else is going to give you money. So they make those changes. They rewrite the script to fit a certain platform or a certain narrative, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to make that movie. And so, it has kind of degraded a filmmaking. Now, I don't want to be completely negative about it. In some cases, I think it's good because it really allows the elite filmmakers like Christopher Nolan and Martin Scorsese and Paul Thomas Anderson and David Fincher to really stand out, because you see them make these great movies in the way that they want to make them, not in the way that the studio tells them. And so, you really do get to see the best of the best. But at the same time, it doesn't bode well for the future. Like you've got these people that are not being trained in how to be great filmmakers, but they're being trained in how to make what the studio wants out of a film. And believe me, what the studio wants is not what the crowd wants, because it's monotonous, mind-numbing, repetitive, narrative-driven nonsense, bullshit, if you will. They want to make films that everybody feels included and no one feels offended. And so you have to have a certain number of these people in it. You have to have a certain amount of this in it. You can't have these specific aspects in it. All the villains have to be a very certain stereotype. And so it really I don't even know what word I'm looking for in this case, but it really desaturates. It makes a lot of very similar movies, and that can really ruin great content, because people get bored with the same old, same old. The reason Star Wars was so successful is because you had never seen anything like it before. The reason Jaws was so successful is because you'd never seen anything like it before. Taxi Driver comes out of nowhere, and it's this movie about a paranoid racist who drives a cab at night and murders people. We think of it now. Scarface, is looked at as one of the greatest movies of all time, and one of Al Pacino's best performances. That shit was a bomb at the box office. Like it was years after that movie was released that people started to actually give it the recognition that it deserves. So, sometimes the monotony can actually ruin an industry, and you need that constant change up. Like if you throw fastballs every time at a batter, eventually he's going to turn on one and take you deep, so you have to have that off speed pitch from time to time to keep the hitter honest. Same thing in the movie industry. Like if you keep putting out these Marvel movies, which were great, they had their moment, but if you just keep putting them out, eventually people are going to get tired of them, and they're going to be able to basically tell you what the movie is before they even sit down in the movie theater. And then the way the studio uses them. Now there's better examples than others. Warner Brothers with their Max is, could be the downfall of the box office movie theater going experience, because they want to put their smash hits out on Max the day it releases in movie theaters. And so what would be the point of taking the time and the money to go and see these movies in the theater like the filmmaker wants you to, if you can just watch it at home at your leisure for no additional charge than the $9.99 a month that Max charges you? On the flip side, you've got Disney Plus, which actually does it on a very brilliant scale. They have past projects up there. Aladdin is up there. The cartoon Little Mermaid, Tarzan. So you have these great classic Disney movies that I can show my son, and I appreciate that. But they also have, bonus content for their big franchises. The Star Wars films are released in theaters, but in between the Star Wars movies, I can watch The Mandalorian or Ahsoka on Disney Plus, and it can tide me over until the next big Star Wars movie comes out. And then when it is ready to come out, by that time, the movies are now up on Disney Plus, so I can watch 1 through 7 or 1 through 9 or whatever it is. And get ready for the next one, And so Disney does it in a very different way than Warner Brothers does. One of them seems like a terrible idea. The other seems like a fantastic way to exploit it. But at the same time, like if you're going back and forth, if Warner Brothers is going to continue to just shite on all their products, you probably don't sign up for it, But Disney Plus is killing it, and they're doing the right things every time, so you are subscribed to them. Now all of a sudden you have no incentive to go see Warner Brothers movies in the theater, because you can just watch the Disney hit on Disney Plus, or you can tide yourself over with the extra franchise content on Disney Plus. And so you limit yourself to the types of movies you see, because Warner Brothers is a different company than Disney Plus. Disney's got, a narrative that they want to push. Warner Brothers has a narrative that they want to push. And while they might be very similar, they're still different, they're still different. And so, if one company really sucks and one company really kills it, you're probably not going to watch most of even the really good stuff that comes from the shitty studio, it's just kind of the transition period that we're in, which is why I turn to you to see what you guys feel and how you guys feel about the state of filmmaking today. I will end on this. There is something special about going to a movie theater and sitting down in the crowd with everybody that is ready to watch this movie and enjoy it for what it is, with their popcorn and their drinks and their candy and stuff. In some cases, in their cosplay uniforms and everything. And you are there not just to experience the movie, but to experience the crowd. Like I remember when I went out to the opening night of Star Wars: A Phantom Menace, and Darth Vader was there, and Luke Skywalker was there, and Han Solo and Princess Leia were there. They obviously, it wasn't Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher. They were, cosplayers, but they were there, and people were there, and Qui-Gon Jinn comes on the screen for the first time, and the crowd is, yeah, or Senator Palpatine comes on screen for the first time, and everybody's boo, boo. You know, like Padme comes on and she gets a standing ovation. You know, like it's exciting to be there to experience that. To go into a horror movie where everybody's on their toes because they've never seen anything like it before, and then right at the last minute, the shark jumps out of the water, and everybody, you know, like that is part of the movie going experience that you cannot replicate in the home. You know, you're not going to get that experience in the home, and so to to take that away from the film goer or the filmmaker, you know, filmmakers and writers and directors and producers and editors, they play on that stuff. You know, they're expecting the oohs and the ahs and the yeahs and the boos. And so they edit the film a certain way to hit those moments, you know. Um you can't replicate that at home. Like it's just, it's impossible. I'm sorry, it is impossible to replicate that on a streaming service, sitting at home in the living room, regardless of how much popcorn you consume. Like you can't replicate that. There is something special about going to see a movie that the filmmaker shot in this crazy aspect ratio with a funky frame rate, or seeing it in IMAX when Joker comes out, played by Heath Ledger, and Christopher Nolan zooms in, and all you see is this face with this crazy psycho smile on his face. You know, like it's just not something you can replicate in the home. And so by trying to force feed everything into streaming services, you take that away from the consumer. And I can't see in any way, shape, or form why that would be a good thing. And again, while I appreciate being able to stay at home because we've got a 17-month at home that we sometimes don't want to get a babysitter for, we can watch something at home. But again, when we're at home with him, he takes up most of our attention. The movie is just kind of on in the background, and so we're not really experiencing the movie like it should be experienced. We're not really getting all that the story is giving us, because it's kind of it's not really at our full attention, and so there are many pluses. There's also a lot of negatives about the streaming services and the state of filmmaking today. And so I thought this would be a good topic to talk about, because we seem to be right in the middle of a strange transition period, and I don't know how I feel about it, to be completely honest with you. And I would love to know down in the comments below what your guys' take on it is. And so let me know. But thank you guys all for sticking with me again through another, oh man, almost 2-hour podcast. We were shorter than last time. We're only at about an hour and 45 instead of hour 56 like we were last time. So maybe 2 hours is just what will be. I can seem to talk for a long time, and I hope you guys are enjoying the talks. Like I was saying earlier, I do fully intend on upgrading the podcast to be more visually appealing. But right now, the content is more the focus. Like I'm focused on what I'm saying and what you're hearing, as opposed to what you're seeing. It's more of a podcast that's meant to be listened to than to be watched. And again, at some point we'll get over that, and we'll get into the being awesome looking stuff, and maybe I'll even put some makeup on. No, I'm not. I'm probably not going to do that. But maybe there's some cool props behind me at some point, or the green screen gets up and working, and I'm able to put all these overlays on, and get that opening title sequence going and stuff. And so be on the lookout for that. But bear with me. This is still a kind of a new thing for me, and I'm excited to bring it to you. I hope you guys are excited to listen. Please, please, please give me comments down below if there's a subject you would like me to talk about. By all means, please put it in the comments below, and I will take a look and I will do my research to see if it's something that I think fits the criteria of the show, and we'll get into it in an episode. The next episode's going to be in a couple of weeks. Hopefully, I think it should come out just before the Super Bowl. So, depending on what happens this weekend, I'll give you my Super Bowl preview, and then we'll get into the other sports that I don't necessarily watch as much, but I do play fantasy sports with, and so we'll go over my basketball team and my hockey team to see how we're doing. And then I'm in a few dynasty football leagues, so we'll go over how a dynasty league works, what I didn't know the first time I signed up for a dynasty league that I wish I did, and then a few players to target. So plenty of stuff coming up. One of these days, I'm actually gonna get a chance to watch a movie. Like I've been really eager to see Oppenheimer and Killers of the Flower Moon. So. Maybe hopefully at some point I get a chance to watch one of those, and we can dissect it and go through it, and I'll let you know how I feel about it. And as Final Fantasy VII Rebirth gets closer, we'll get more into talking about that, and if there's any surprises in the video game world, we will hopefully get into that. Otherwise, again, suggestions are always welcome in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you know when I do go live or drop a new video. Right now we're playing Final Fantasy VII Remake. We're going to play that up until Rebirth drops, and then we're going to go into Rebirth. And then we're also playing the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters as well. Right now we're on Final Fantasy 2. 3, 4, 5, 6 will follow. And depending on what comes out and how great it is, I'm hoping to finally stream Elden Ring. We haven't done that yet, and then I'm hoping to get back into some other stuff that that I would love to finish up, and that we never got to. Not Elden Ring, but Sekiro comes to mind. I know I streamed that over on Twitch, but I don't think I've streamed it here yet. I'm thinking about maybe getting back into some oldies but goodies. Fallout 3 specifically was one that I was thinking about getting back into. We streamed a lot of Fallout 4, but Fallout 3 was released way before I started my YouTube channel, so we'd like to get into that. And hopefully. Maybe speaking of Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, hopefully like a remastered version maybe gets surprisingly dropped by Bethesda at some point this year. We can talk about that too. So plenty of stuff to look forward to. I hope you guys are looking forward to it, because I'm looking forward to bringing it to you. If you are excited, do me that favor, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit that notification bell, share it with your friends, let them know that they got to check out the Another Gamer Dad podcast starring yours truly, BigSweetC. Hit that comment section below with what you would like me to talk about, and we will get to it. So either way, that's going to do it from me, the BigSweetC. How does that go again? Sorry, I totally fucked up my closing remarks, but either way, that does it from me, BigSweetC. For you too. Why can't I remember what I say? Man, I had all sorts of brain farts today. Dishonored. That's it. When we were talking about the video game aspect, that was what Indiana Jones looks like. Dishonored. That's what it looks like to me. Wow. I can't believe it took me this long to figure that out. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one. BigSweetC, that's me. Wishing YouTube, that's you. Wonderful day, night, morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it might be. As long as you're watching, I'm wishing you a wonderful watching time. Sweetness. Signing off. Peace.